The family reunion had been planned for 6 months. My parents had rented out the entire community center, hired caterers, and sent elaborate invitations to every branch of the family tree. But more importantly, they'd invited special guests, local business leaders, politicians, and prominent community figures that my father had spent years cultivating relationships with. "This is our chance to show everyone what the Morrison family has become," my father had announced at a planning dinner 2 months earlier. "Kenneth is a successful attorney. Patricia married a doctor. Even your cousin James just made partner at his accounting firm. We're a family of achievers." I'd been noticeably absent from that list. 3 days before the reunion, my mother had called with instructions. "Emma, about Saturday. We need you to help in the kitchen. Stay behind the scenes, help coordinate the catering staff, that sort of thing." "You want me to work the event instead of attending as a guest?" I'd asked carefully. "It's not that you're working it," she'd said quickly. "It's just that we have some very important people coming. Mayor Hendricks, Senator Patricia Wallace, several CEOs. Your father has been building these relationships for years. And you know how these things are. People ask questions about family members, make comparisons. It's just easier if you're occupied elsewhere." "You're embarrassed by me," I'd stated flatly. "Don't be dramatic, Emma. You're 32 years old, you work as a community organizer." The air quotes were audible in her voice. "You live in that tiny apartment downtown. These people are used to a certain level of professional achievement. We're just being strategic about how we present the family." My brother Kenneth had been more direct when I'd asked him about it. "Look, Dad's worked hard to position this family in the right social circles. You're doing your community activism thing, which is fine, but it's not exactly impressive to the country club crowd. Just help out in the back and let the rest of us handle the networking." So that's how I found myself on Saturday afternoon, dressed in black pants and a simple white blouse, stationed in the community center's kitchen area while my family mingled in the main hall with their important guests. What they didn't know, what they'd never bothered to ask about, was what community organizer actually meant in my context. I hadn't just been organizing communities. For the past 8 years, I'd been building one of the most effective nonprofit networks in the state. What started as volunteer work in underserved neighborhoods had evolved into the Morrison Initiative for Community Development. Yes, I'd kept the family name, though they'd never noticed. We operated 17 community centers across 4 cities. We'd secured $80 million in funding from federal grants, private foundations, and corporate partnerships. Our job training programs had placed over 3,000 people in stable employment. Our youth programs served 5,000 kids annually. And our affordable housing initiative had developed partnerships with 3 major real estate developers. I sat on the boards of 4 other nonprofits. I advised the state legislature on community development policy. I'd been invited to the White House twice for roundtable discussions on urban poverty. And just last month I'd been appointed to Senator Patricia Wallace's advisory board on economic development, a position that came with significant influence over federal funding priorities. But my family had heard community organizer and filed me away as unsuccessful. They'd never asked about my organization's budget, our impact metrics, or my professional network. They just assumed I was struggling and positioned me accordingly. From my station in the kitchen, I could hear the reunion in full swing. Laughter, conversations, the clink of glasses. Through the service window, I could see my father introducing Kenneth to the mayor. My sister Patricia was charming a group of business executives. My mother was holding court with several prominent women from her social circles. And I was in the back arranging catering trays. My phone buzzed. A text from Senator Wallace's chief of staff. "Emma, the senator is running 20 minutes late to your family event. She wanted to apologize and confirm you'll have time to discuss the housing proposal before she has to leave for her next appointment." I typed back, "No problem. I'm here all afternoon." 20 minutes later, I heard a commotion near the entrance. Senator Wallace had arrived, accompanied by 2 aides and her security detail. My father rushed to greet her, practically glowing with pride at having a U.S. senator at his family reunion. "Senator Wallace, we're so honored you could join us," my father said, his voice carrying across the room. "Let me introduce you to everyone. This is my son Kenneth, he's an attorney." "That's wonderful," Senator Wallace said politely, scanning the room. "But actually I'm here to see Emma Morrison. Is she available?" We have some urgent matters to discuss regarding the Community Development Bill. The room went quiet. I could see it from my position in the kitchen. The sudden stillness, the confused looks, people glancing around trying to figure out who Emma Morrison was. My father's face had gone blank. Emma? You mean my daughter Emma? Of course, Senator Wallace said. Emma Morrison, who serves on my Economic Development Advisory Board. She's one of my key advisors on community policy. I need her input on some federal funding allocations we're finalizing next week. My mother appeared at my father's elbow, her voice uncertain. Senator, there must be some confusion. Our Emma is just a community organizer. She's helping in the kitchen today. Senator Wallace's expression shifted from confusion to something colder. Helping in the kitchen? You have one of the most influential community development leaders in the state working your catering. The silence was profound. I'm sorry, Senator Wallace continued, her voice taking on an edge. But are we talking about the same Emma Morrison? Founder and executive director of the Morrison Initiative? The woman who just secured a $15 million federal grant for affordable housing development? Who testified before the Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs last month? I decided it was time to make an appearance. I stepped out from the kitchen area, smoothing down my simple white blouse. Senator Wallace, I said warmly. Thank you for coming. I apologize for the confusion. The senator's face lit up. Emma. There you are. She crossed the room and embraced me warmly, completely ignoring the shocked faces of my family members. I'm so sorry I'm late. The Housing Committee meeting ran over. It's no problem, I assured her. Should we find somewhere quiet to talk? Actually, the senator said, her voice carrying deliberately, I was hoping to meet your family properly. Your work has been so influential, I'd love to tell them how much their daughter has accomplished. My father had recovered enough to speak. Senator, I think there's been some mistake. Emma works with local community groups. She's not. Not what? Senator Wallace interrupted, her tone sharp. Not the executive director of a $30 million nonprofit organization? Not the architect of the most successful community development model in the state? Not the advisor who helped shape the community investment provisions in the federal infrastructure bill. She turned to address the entire room, which had fallen completely silent. Everyone was watching now. The mayor, the business leaders, all the important people my parents had been so eager to impress. I want everyone here to understand something, Senator Wallace said clearly. Emma Morrison is one of the most effective leaders I've had the privilege to work with. Her organization has transformed struggling neighborhoods, created thousands of jobs, and pioneered approaches to community development that we're now implementing at the federal level. She's advised 3 different Senate committees. She was a featured speaker at the National Community Development Conference last year. And she's done all of this with grace, integrity, and a genuine commitment to helping people. He paused, looking directly at my parents. And you have her arranging catering trays? My father's face had gone from pale to flushed. We didn't know. You didn't ask, I said quietly. That's different from not knowing. Mayor Hendricks, who'd been standing near my father, spoke up. Emma Morrison. Of course. I should have made the connection. The Morrison Initiative. You're behind the community center that opened in the East District last year. My office worked with your team on the project. That's right, I confirmed. We're planning 2 more centers in similar communities. One of the business executives my sister had been talking to stepped forward. I'm Robert Chin, CEO of Chin Industries. We've been trying to get a meeting with you for 6 months. Your workforce development program is exactly the kind of initiative we want to partner with. Mr. Chin, I nodded. I believe my deputy director has been corresponding with your community investment team. We'd be happy to discuss partnership opportunities. My mother found her voice. Emma, I don't understand. You never said you were running a major organization. You said you were doing community work. I am doing community work, I said. I've told you that repeatedly. You just assumed that meant I was volunteering or working some small-scale project. You never asked about my organization's size, our funding, our impact, or my professional responsibilities. Kenneth was staring at me. You're on a Senate advisory board? 3 of them actually, Senator Wallace supplied. Emma is one of the most sought-after advisors in community development policy. Patricia, my sister, looked stricken. And we had no idea. You had no interest, I corrected gently. There's a difference. Every time I tried to talk about my work, you'd change the subject or make dismissive comments about activism. I learned to stop trying. Senator Wallace checked her watch. Emma, I hate to be abrupt, but we really do need to discuss those funding allocations. Is there somewhere we can talk privately? Of course. The center has conference rooms upstairs. As we moved toward the stairs, my father stepped in front of us. Senator Emma, please, let me explain. You thought your daughter was unsuccessful, Senator Wallace said bluntly. So you hid her in the kitchen while you networked with people you deemed important. Mr. Morrison, I'm going to be very direct with you. Your daughter has more genuine influence in community development and economic policy than everyone else in this room combined. The fact that you didn't recognize that says more about your values than hers. We left them standing there and went upstairs to discuss federal housing policy. The meeting took 45 minutes. Senator Wallace was thorough, asking detailed questions about implementation strategies and community impact assessments. Your family has no idea who you are, do they? She asked when we'd finished the policy discussion. They know who they want me to be, I said. That's not quite the same thing. Will you be all right going back down there? I'll be fine. This is actually clarifying in a way. I've known for years that they didn't take my work seriously, but watching them realize they were wrong, that's instructive. When we returned to the main hall, the atmosphere had completely changed. The reunion had essentially stopped. People were clustered in small groups talking in low voices. My family looked shell-shocked. Senator Wallace made her goodbyes, publicly thanking me again for my invaluable advice and leadership. Mayor Hendricks approached as she was leaving and asked if we could schedule a meeting about expanding our programs. 2 other business leaders handed me cards and requested follow-up conversations. And my family watched it all, finally seeing what they'd refused to see for 8 years. After Senator Wallace left, my father approached me. The pride that had been in his voice when introducing Kenneth was gone, replaced by something that looked like shame. Emma, I owe you an apology. We all do. You owe me more than that, I said. You owe me an explanation for why you thought it was appropriate to hide me in the kitchen like I was something to be ashamed of. He started then stopped. We thought you were just doing volunteer work. Living paycheck to paycheck. We were trying to protect you from feeling inferior. By making me serve food while you networked? I interrupted. By telling me to stay out of sight? That was protection. My mother had tears in her eyes. Emma, we were wrong. So wrong. But how were we supposed to know? You live in that small apartment, you don't talk about money or success. I live in a modest apartment because I prefer it, I said. I don't talk about money because I think it's vulgar. And I don't talk about success because you've made it abundantly clear over the years that you don't value the kind of work I do. You heard community organizing and decided I was unsuccessful. That was your choice, not my failure to communicate. Kenneth approached hesitantly. I'm sorry. I genuinely had no idea. Why didn't you tell us? I tried to tell you, Kenneth. Remember 3 years ago at Christmas when I tried to explain the housing project? You literally said, "That's nice, Emma, but when are you going to get a real job?" Remember 2 years ago when I mentioned testifying before Congress? Dad changed the subject to talk about your latest case. You didn't want to know about my work. You wanted me to fit into your narrative of the disappointing daughter so you could feel superior. The truth of that hung in the air. One of my cousins, James, spoke up from across the room. For what it's worth, Emma, I think what you've built is incredible. I looked up the Morrison initiative on my phone while you were upstairs. The impact metrics are extraordinary. You're doing real, meaningful work that's changing people's lives. Thank you, James. Why did you keep the Morrison family name for the organization? My father asked. If we were so dismissive of your work? Emma told her family the work was never about them. It was about giving the Morrison name meaning through integrity and service, not just status. Her mother cried, asking to understand her work, but Emma questioned their motives. Guests left, but many stopped to support Emma, turning her family's contacts into her own. Patricia admitted she'd been wrong to measure success through appearances, and her father confessed they should have been proud all along. They asked for forgiveness, but Emma said it would take more than one apology after years of exclusion. She told them to value real impact, not just titles and money. Her grandmother reminded Emma she was already enough, that her success didn't need family approval. Driving home, Emma ignored family apologies and focused on professional messages. She realized true success wasn't about validation. It was about meaningful work, lasting impact, and tuning out the noise she had long stopped listening to.